Well, hello, this is your host Eric. We're back here into From the Depth, and finally, it has been time. It's finally time to pitch the Mark 1 of the Gimle class battleship versus the Mark 3, the updated new version. So, it's still the same ship, but we are going to go through the differences a little bit quickly here before we start the battle, just like any other video on these battles. So, at a glance, you can see that we added some nice looking details on the Mark III, but it is very similar, of course, to the Mark I. If we just take a little quick look here, we can see that the general configuration and weapons are the same. For the Mark I, we have a cost of 2,205,000 materials, or 2,200,000. And this is actually not accurate when it was built. The cost of this ship has increased since the updates of the game. We're currently playing in Alpha Branch. So in Alpha Branch, the Mark I is actually too expensive, but that doesn't really matter. The Mark I, you know it very well, so I guess we can just look at some key statistics. We do have shell health of 216,000, and for the upgraded Gimle class we have a shell health of 300 and a shell health of 200 and ish, the same kinda. We do have a little bit of a different configuration. We can see we're relying on some diff guns here on the Mark III of the Gimle. We also have a little radar thing that is attached by a spin block, so it spins here and it has decoys, heat decoys and radar decoys, so it basically makes missiles confused. The original Mark I of the Gimle does use a interceptor, the SpeedX light system, which is good against missiles, but it's also very expensive. It's like more than 10k materials, so we opted for another weapon system. Mark I of the Gimle also has a dedicated seaways kinetic cannon, which isn't wrong, but for the Mark III of the Gimle we have opted for other weapons. In this case, we opted for more diff guns. And that is because, well, that little gun the Mark I has does like cost 10k too. We also have our beautiful little mascot, Eriki, by Matros Finley, who drew that for the Empire, which is very awesome. But in any case, the Mark III of the Gimle uses an interesting little tactic here. These guys, they're cram cannons and they fire at 5% packing. They basically spam decoy shots, most of them there. So we have some extra small cram cannons to spam decoy sets. And I'll just have to show you a last minute edition. This is how cool, not only all the Latin quotes, this is how cool the Gimle Mark III thinks it is, There is a Matros just sitting here and with this little set at an ammo barrel in the front of the ship. That's, well, probably that Matros is very key IA very soon, but whatever. In any case, I do have added a lot of extra detection on the Mark III of the Gimle. The Mark III has much more backup in terms of detection. And the cannon here looks like the Arcuballista Invictus. That is incorrect. This is the Arcuballista Indomitus, built or upgraded by Netrameira for the army of GMODISM. And this beautiful little version, it does cost a bit more. I will just show you that. Whoops, APS. So we got the Arcuballista Indomitus, and that is like 73,000, whereas the Arcuballista Invictus is 67,000. So it's a bit more expensive. and it uses another gauge, but it does do considerable more kinetic damage than the original Arcoballista Invictus we have here, as I've shown you in some videos before, but yeah. We have, other than that, we have also added a little kinetic cannon here, a 50mm sandblaster to the side of the Mark III to the Gimle. We have our painted nice little armor, and the Mark III of the Gimle is really not meant to ever be used in a campaign situation. It is tournament focused, it's tournament configured, so it spawns with all of the shields and all of the, like, everything is online from the get-go, so it burns tremendous amount of materials just sitting here. The Mark I of the Gimle is actually possible to use in campaign mode, since it does turn off stuff and doesn't use a lot of materials standby, which is pretty nice, except of course the front smoke system. So that will probably be configured later for campaign use to turn that off. As of the interiors of the Gimle, they are quite similar. Just some small fun additions like the Gimle class poster Mark III has, which is very nice. But in any case, and that little poster is made by Kevin for us, so that was really cool too. Yeah, the big thing with the Gimle Mark III is that the cram cannons are laser area detonated, so they're a little bit more cram focused, frag focused than the other crams, and that is because they explode at the approximate place inside the enemy ship, basically. And we did that because, well, of course, then we can hit near misses. Near misses will still do damage, and that is a game changer for as far as the Gimle class is concerned. Yeah, we do have a little broadside of frag APS, diff APS there too. So we have a little different loadout. Then I did, of course, change here, because there is a nice little thing about the Gimle class Mark III, and that is that, as you can see here down at the bow battery, Commander Ali has helped us upgrade the Gimle Mark III. It is our commissioned officer in the army of GMODISM. Our Commander Ali has went through the Gimle class ship, checked for some upgrades, and done upgrades where she could find them to be made. So the main thing that Ali has made that you haven't seen in the beta version of the Gimle in those battles is that we have a new type of staggered era armor here, which consumes less era per use. So that's a really cool little staggered era system we'll have to look at later. And if you don't want to look at it later, you can of course look at it on the ship, since it's gonna go up on the Steam Workshop for public, public use. Well, that is basically that, I think. And I worked on upgrading the Gimle for so long now, and I know Ali added a lot of interior armor upgrades and stuff at different places, so I can't show you where all of these upgrades have been made, because I don't even remember which are new, which were in the Mark I, which I added, which Ali added for the interior armor. But yeah, the interior armor is upgraded and compartmentalized so that it is less likely to let in shells everywhere. Yeah. And I tested the Mark III Gimle finalized version here versus the previous Mark III beta off camera and the upgraded one. Now that's probably a good bit coincidental because, like, of course, this Mark III finalized is a little bit better than the Mark III beta, but I don't think the difference is so big that the finalized version will win every time. I mean, it's just a tweaked version with a few upgrades. Maybe, you know, maybe some of those are really game changers, we don't really know. But yeah, I think we looked at this long enough, so it's time to get into the battle where we are going to pitch Mark 1 of the Gimle class battleship versus the Mark 3 version. It's gonna be very interesting to see for sure. The Mark 1 of the Gimle we are going to paint in deep water guard colors so that we can see the difference of it. Alright, and here we are in the battle. This is the Mark 1 of the Gimle starting early with a little blast. And as you also can see very soon is that the Gimle Mark 3 will actually not fire right away. It will wait for a few seconds and then it will fire its gun, and that's because it should get enough data for aiming the guns correctly before it's firing them. So the Mark 3 of the Gimle, I forgot to tell you that, is that it has this weird thing where it bobs up and down a little bit into the water, so it will possibly dodge some scary shots maybe. I don't know if it does very much, but it looks funny. You will see that it sits at different altitudes. Now you can see, okay, now we're sitting at this altitude for a while. And then it just goes up and down like that. Also momentarily saves some engine power. In any case, we can clearly see here that the incoming cramshells from the Mark III is never a complete miss because they will detonate at the area of where the Gimle is. It's very even so far though. One thing to keep in mind is that the Mark 1 of the Gimle actually has higher damage cram cannons. Those cram cannons are dealing more damage when they hit because they never approximately like explodes where they should explode. The Gimle Mark III's cram shells always explode kind of approximately where they should, but rarely exactly on target. Now they did that, but that's because we have some fluctuation of the detection accuracy, and one big reason for that is that both Mark 1 and Mark 3 of the Gimle class battleship does use some pretty heavy ECM jammers which interfere with detection accuracy. Well, in any case, we can see all of the decoys coming in here and looking very splendid. I should probably get going to look at the nice cameras. I do know how to record cinematically. Just remind me too. Alright, look at that. Boom. Even the mortars are hitting a little bit here. Let's see how the Gimle Mark III is doing. It is in the lead by 3%. Oh yes. And one thing I'm a little bit curious to look at, that's where the arqueballistas will be firing. Whoops. Okay, I don't know if I'll catch up to that. I will. This is the hollow point variant. Look at this. So this, one of the arqueballistas is now hollow point. Now, at that particular area, it didn't do too much damage. And that's because the Gimle, both Mark 1 and Mark 3, has real air gaps. But a lot of the contestants do not have real air gaps. No, they kind of skip on that. So that's why we now can have a hollow point, because when we have a hollow point, we can really tear out important bits. Also, if they hit turret heads, that's like a fantastic place to hit. Now, let's see where the penetrating variants are doing. The Mark III of the Gimle's Arqueballista Indomitus S. They don't fire only underwater, they fire basically wherever. So you can see this particular one is going out here. But shooting hole through 2 of the cannons. Probably not crippling any of them, but definitely weakening them. And here you can see some of those near misses that do finally hit, even though not as fatally as one would want. The Gimle Mk3 also has a pack cannon that one of the packs are explosive now instead of EMP, because I figured that zapping things with EMP, you know, all of the noob ships without proper EMP protection is dead already. So there is no use of having EMP pack on the Mark III. The Mark III is tuned for the scary ones, the evil bastards. That's where we're targeting at, and we'll just assume that each contestant in the Gimle challenge by now, each and every one of them have really good EMP protection, just proper EMP all the way through. So that's why we don't bother with doing much EMP damage. And explosive damage will be able to shoot off detection components as well as EMP, and it doesn't care about them being protected, so yeah. And if you somehow missed that, the Gimle Mk3 will be put back into the Gimle tournament, because, you know, every one of the contestants had the ability to upgrade their designs. They had a time where they could upgrade and send in fixed designs of their ships, and the only one that didn't have that opportunity, that was me. So I thought, you know, I want to upgrade the Gimle Mk3 and I will then put it back into the tournament. And one big reason why I wanted that is that we wanted an exact number of 32 candidates. Because that will make the brackets very nice and not weird at all. Now you can see we're shooting at this superstructure. Why is that? This is gonna be best of 3, by the way. The Gimle Mk1 can still win. And if it by... like, we have tested it behind the scenes against different Gimle variants along the way to really try and tune it. But there is also the risk that the Mk3 doesn't win over the Mk1 here in this official battle. And if that happens, I don't really know what we'll do, because that will make it so we can't put the Mk3 of the Gimle back into the tournament. So yeah, that's the stakes. The mortars, they explode at low altitude now, so they also usually do some damage, even though it's near misses, which is nice. Oof. And the cram cannons of the Gimle class, they are not each having their own AI, by the way. But I know Borderwise said that in his video with the upgraded Dragon Slang, but they don't. They have two AIs. We have the aft battery and we have the bow battery, or are they called that? I don't remember. Maybe fore and stern batteries. I don't know, but they are anyways batteries. And they have a backup to an extra AI channel in case the main AI controlling them would go down. So that's kind of the little neat thing with them. Also, one thing I realized I completely forgot about the Gimle class Mk1 was to properly tune all the detection. I had somehow missed that you had to tune the different AIs separately. So the Mk3 of the Gimle also has properly tuned detection, something that I previously only did for the first mainframe, because I didn't understand that you had to do it for each one individually, because the slider is really hidden. I'll do some videos about that in the future, but if at all, I also sometimes just don't tune the AIs because I forgot it / was lazy, who knows. Anyways, as for the first round, it seems that the Mark III is really dominating here. So I just want to say big thanks to all the supporters of the channel, which is of course Chancellor Super Dave at the Government of GMODISM. We have our commissioned officers, Admiral Dragon X62 Commodore, the all-around gamer, especially Commander Ali, since she helped me fixing the armor and doing some other checks of the Gimle and basically doing some behind-the-scene battle testing to find errors and things that were just not properly fixed. So yeah, big thanks to Ali for helping out with the Gimle Mk3. Also, thanks to our other commanders supporting the channel, Ben Wilkie, Cameroon Dixon, DLFN, Sven van der Velde, and of course our lieutenants, Anto, Gravy, Flars Dagan, Daniel Sakin O, and Parba Grid, Vincent Curtis, Volkite, Rick and Scooby Rocks, and all the cadets. On top of that, big thanks to everyone in the Ecclesiarchy of GMODISM available at YouTube. As YouTube members, you have early access to watching videos. You're probably watching this video a few days before everyone else. Yeah, anyways, big thanks for supporting the channel, that really helps. You do know my situation. If not, if you care, you can check the monthly updates, but yeah. I'm trying to get back to the schedule and produce content as before, and slowly but surely we're getting back there. In any case, okay, now we have 60%. The Gimle class Mark 1 is really down, and the Mark 3 has stayed at 91% for a good while. So I'm pretty happy with the results here. Look at that, we are despawning. First battle. Well, the Mark III is winning, so let's see if we can replicate the results in the next battle. And here we are at the round 2. So let me just show you what the delay timer really does. Look at these cramshells. They were fired a little bit prematurely, so well, now they got shot down, but a lot of the times the first cram volley misses the mark. And that's what our little delay timer is doing. It makes sure the first volley has all the data it needs and is really on point. Well, I just have to see where our arquebalistas is shooting, because that's always fun to check out. Alright, alright. And, oh, it died here. Well, penetrated pretty deeply here. Didn't, of course, do any fatal damage. One thing the Gimle Mk3 also does is that it has a really narrow LAMs. The LAMs very rarely activate. And that's because they only activate themselves in a very extreme angle. And the reason is that they shouldn't be using the laser energy from the damaged laser systems unless they have to. But they should still be there, because I tried to disconnect and remove all the LAMs completely, and that actually was really bad when we were faced with well, basically telephone pole spammers, so-called chemical shells, because they are pretty easy to shoot down, but they do serious damage if you don't. But they come in at pretty predictable angles. And we don't want the LAMs to target anything that's like deflecting and stuff like that. I don't know if it really helps, but you can see that the LAMs are kind of shooting things a little bit from time to time at a long distance. And the Vigoletta Marksman is actually the rail assisted variant now, so that's a little different variant. Oh! And you may wonder, why do we have missile lasers? Well, we have missile lasers at another spot where the lasers are not shooting, just to make sure that the enemy ship uses all of the smoke all the time, and not only where it matters. Right. Mark 3 of the Gimle is already down to 93%. It's actually much more even this battle in terms of percentages. You can see one of the arquebalistas is actually taken out here. I think it's... Oh yeah, look at that. It's weapon controllers. I think it has 2 or 3, but all of them seem to be gone. Boom. Well, well, well. The Mark 3 of the Gimle also has our upgraded Telum interceptors that we have optimized in a previous empirical testing video, if you want to know what they are. But they are decoed to look like the weather vane. But, that doesn't matter very much, but they are very good at shooting at incoming ram shells. They are very, very quick to intercept. They are like, against cram cannons, they are definitely on the level with kinetic Seawiz cannons, so that's how effective they are. Gimle Mark 1 is down to 87%. Okay. I was worried there that the Mark 1 may win, but I don't think it will anymore. And here you can see our little bobbing up and down motion. Isn't that nice? Now, the Gimle doesn't use AP sham shells, but Alice upgraded staggered era armor here, protecting the turrets and some important bits on the Gimle. They should really survive a lot longer than the previous one, because at the previous staggered era armor, one shot would activate 4 eras, whereas the upgraded era only activates 1, which is very nice. I'll have to take a little look at that pattern later. It's gonna be nice. You can see here the Gimle Mark 1 is aiming at hot blocks, and a lot of the time that means aiming at the rotating decoy. Well, I think we should home in on the I'm sorry. I just don't like the fact that you get teleported to oblivion when you lock onto a shell. There should really be some hierarchy that it locks on to more important stuff, you know, first. Well, whatever. What? Did they get shot? Well, in any case, here we can see that the Mark 1 of the Gimle, we lost the big cram cannon. You can see like the weird things here. With laser detonated cram shells, they just explode at a general vicinity. Now this is 180. This is pretty cool that they just rain down like this. Whoops, now I locked onto the wrong shell again. Or it stopped locking onto the wrong things. But the laser detonated frag crams really have the opportunity to kill the AI. As you can see here, we have almost killed the AI. Wow, that was such a good hit. That's what you really can do when you have laser detonated frag crams. They just come behind and just spread their crams You can really damage stuff from the wrong side, so to say, if they are one-siders like the Gimles are. Now, they are a little bit, like, so to say, boring to look at, but these little cute turrets, that's the Fang systems, they are actually set up with one Hesh shell, I think it is. Is that a shape charge? I think that's a shape charge. And a conduit thing. So they are specifically designed to destroy shields and turrets. So when they come in here, one is leaking tiny amounts of... No, it's Hesh. Sorry. I mix them up sometimes. And one is disabling the shield. And they are actually set up to aim at the same spot that the main cram cannons are aiming. Wow, look at that! The Gimle Mk1 is now defeated. That means that the Mark III of the Gimle has won 2 out of 3 battles, which means that the Mark III has proven itself in official battle conditions to be superior. Which is always interesting and scary to check because, you know, when you have official tournament setting, you may have forgotten to take into account things like not consuming too much materials and whatnot. But it is, yeah, it's not running out of materials and it managed to beat the Gimle Mk1. That's awesome. Well, we are going to have a third battle anyways, just so that we will see that the results are really reliable. If it wins 3 out of 3, we can say it's very reliable. If it doesn't change the outcome of the battle, but it's interesting to see. And there we are in the third battle. I just wanted to tune in here on the first little volley of the Gimle, where it has it's been waiting to shoot its blast. And the Gimle Mk1 still has really scary sea-whiz capabilities against cram cannons. But it's not able to uphold that. And the Gimle Mk3 is just overwhelming with damage. You can see even if the cram shells get deflected, they explode in the vicinity. You can of course have the same effect by having a inertial fuse, it's called. When the angle of the projectile is changed, it just explodes. But if you have an inertial fuse, it's not enough. You also need to have a penetration depth fuse or explode from first impact fuse. And then you already have 2 fuses. So then you're down to, I think it's 80% of the health. The more fuses you have, they like remove 1/10 of a, like, what am I saying? They remove 10% of the cram shell's total health per fuse. So when you're only having one single laser, like it's actually not a laser fuse, it's called launch from like detonate from launch, I think it's called, and it basically sets the fuse dependent on the distance to the target. But when you add a laser targeter, that timer is being set to the target instead, which is nice. Well, the Mark III's laser is actually a little bit different. You can see here in the Mark I's laser that you can see we have an occasional pulse laser. It's actually a Q0 laser with a Q1 laser inside it, so it kind of has both. The Mark III of the Gimle only has Q0 lasers, so they are continuous, which is what the main laser, like the main laser of the Mark I has too. But the Mark III only has Q0, and they are focusing on the same spot for a really long time. So they are digging deeper holes, so to say. whereas the Mark 1 is fluctuating to different spots from time to time. So it kind of does better fire damage, but not as well heat burning damage. The Gimle Mk3, as well as the Mark 1, still has this really big issue where a lot of its spent materials are to counter incoming missiles or cram cannons. And for enemies that are not using neither cram shells nor missiles, those defenses are kinda a little bit useless, unfortunately. So that's a little bit sad, but I was thinking to maybe make a breadboard system that where if it didn't detect any cram shells to shoot at, it would then instead switch ammo type to a damage ammo type and activate local weapon controllers instead of Zeus controllers. And that would have been great. But the truth is that I was too lazy to set that up, so I didn't. That's the only reason. Alright. Also, I think our little mascot is helping. Also, we have a little king crown there. That's not a picture, by the way. That's a Unicode symbol. From chess, I believe. If you want to have nice Unicode things you can use, there is a little book of Unicode on my build platform. That's the Mark 3 of the build platform. That's in the workshop. I know also, I think it was GNOME has made a little breadboard downloadable, which has even more, like basically I think it is all the symbols plus some symbols that doesn't even work. It's like a big library too as a breadboard, which you can find in the workshop as well. Here you could see the lamps. It's actually targeting these things. Now only a little bit briefly. Alright. This time the Mark 1 of the Gimle is actually doing much better. Look at that. The Mark 3 has taken a bigger beating this time. That is worrying. But not too much. Also, you should see the tetra cope we have put on the Mark 3 of the Gimle. The tetra cope is pretty extreme, but we had to bring down the costs. I also, like last second, noticed that the Gimle Mark 3 was actually a bit too expensive in alpha, so I made it so it's not too expensive in alpha. This is in alpha, by the way. I usually play in alpha. So the Mark 1 of the Gimle has, you know, actual blocks as a bottom, whereas the Mark 3 has tetra cope. Yes. But you know, the campaign vehicles use a lot of tetra cope too due to volume restrictions, so don't blame me, blame the devs. It's an official build tactic. Tetra cope. Right. 84%. I do still think that the Gimle... Whoa, what's happening here? I still think the Gimle Mark 3 will win though, but... Oh, the AI is semi-exposed. Look at that. But it's just a tiny bit behind in materials. I don't think it matters too much though. I know that the Gimle Mark 3 actually has more blocks that are easy to destroy. So the Gimle Mark 3 has an even higher tendency to drop in health. Because the health is of course just a percentage of all the blocks alive since spawn. So if you have a lot of tetras like the Mark 3 have, you'll drop in health faster than if you have life. you know, not wooden tetras at all, but just metal, pure metal blocks. And that's why the Megalodon is like unusable past 85%, because it's the blocks they use are really high cost, because it's like mostly metal, alloy, and some heavy armor, and those blocks are harder to destroy. So when you destroyed 15% of the Megalodon, you basically destroyed every weapon system and like everything of importance, so it doesn't function anymore. Whereas the Gimle is so redundant that it fights about as well at 90% as 100%, and at 85% it's, you know, at least half functional. Oh! What's happened here? I'm just curious. What's up with this? Why are you not shooting? Oh. Well, damn. It has to be some type of... Or perhaps it's just reloading. That could be it too. I'm just basically worried it's gotten stuck somehow. I've tried to check all the turrets, of course, so that they should be working perfectly fine. But if there is any time to do a last-minute fix, it's about now, before I upload the ship to the Steam Workshop. Both are surprisingly at 80%, pretty stably at that. Crazy. I'm wondering what our mortars are doing. Now the Gimle Mk1 is, honestly, it's in the lead. Whoa. Why didn't you... That's strange. That is strange. Did I forget to fuse one of the cram shells? You don't either. What's up with that? What's up with the mortars? I'll need to check those fuses. There may be an... I have possibly messed up the fuses. Well, I'm not re-recording this battle. The results still stand, but I may fix those fuses on the mortar before uploading the ship to the Steam Workshop. I'm also gonna check that the side cannon doesn't get stuck. I did do the battle testing just before this, so... It looks like it's a little bit too thin. I think it just got some damage. Probably lost connection to something important. I don't know. We'll have to do a little bit check up later on. Oh wow, look at that. The Mk3 is missing one big cannon. Look at that. That definitely got shot out from by another cram cannon. The laser is doing most of the heavy lifting now, I believe. One arqueballista seems to be alive, but the Mk1 is honestly in the lead by 7%. Oh, damn. That is very surprising. In our tests, we rarely saw the Mk1 of the Gimle winning the battles, but gives you to show that there is still a bit of luck and stuff involved. Ooh. Like, obviously, the Mark 1 of the Gimle's crams can still, like, shoot at the AI and kill it. Oh. I think that might have to do with some of the weirdness here. The AI is partly damaged, so we may be running some backup computers possibly. Hard to tell exactly, but oof. 67%. You know, I think actually Mark 1 of the Gimle will win this third battle. The Mark 3 of the Gimle has still managed to win the best of 3 battle, so it's gonna be into the main challenge. But it was interesting to see. I did not anticipate this to happen, that's for sure. 65 versus 76%. Oh well. Looks like it's having a hard time to find a place to aim at. Do we have detection issues? I don't think so. Probably the backup computer part. Oh my, 65 versus 76. Well, I'm pretty sure we are going to see how this goes. The Gimle Mk3 will actually not win the last battle, most likely. But in any case, we're gonna see how it goes. I just want to say excuse me for taking so long to managing to continue the Gimle challenge. Everything, you know, as you know, has been a little bit stalled, and that's the reason there. But we are now back. We're gonna continue with the Gimle tournament. We're gonna record more battles and see where this goes. If the Gimle Mk3 has any chance of beating any of the ships that already did beat it, I don't know. We'll just check it. I don't remember now exactly which of them the Mk3 of the Gimle will meet. Maybe it was the broadsword or something, but I think it was a real scary enemy. So let's hope that the Gimle manages to beat its old foe. Don't have too high hopes, however, because if I remember correctly, if it means the broadsword, that's an APS heavy design, and it's just still not really set up to deal with APS heavy designs. That is probably the best thing to come at against the Gimle class. Still. But if you do decide to download the Gimle Mk3 from the workshop, do please give it a little upvote, and it will give you a harder challenge than the Mark 1 in case you relied on winning by being a bit evasive, because the Mark 3 is really optimized to do a little bit more damage against enemies that relied on evasiveness. Let's see here how the Mark 1 of the Gimle is doing. Its laser is still online, and wow, somehow all of the cram cannons still live. And that's the thing too, the Gimle's cram cannons, you know, they don't do as consistent damage, but they do more damage than the Mark 3's cram cannons. The Mark 1 of the Gimle, it's actually upgraded Mark 1, but it's still the Mark 1. They use the S. Davidos cram cannons, and our new upgraded version. Now, I don't really remember exactly what they were called. I think they're like rock class. Anyways, they're more powerful against evasive things. These old ones deal actually more damage. Well, 56%. We're closing in on the ending for the Gimle Mk3. So I think that a few more shots and it's going down. You can see though that it looks much more healthy. Was a little bit unlucky of losing that many crown cannons early on. Well, what can you do about that? In-game timer says 12 minutes. Well, the game speed is like 80%, so it doesn't lag that much. The Gimle Mk3 lags less, that's one thing. Oh wow. And there it goes. Well, GG. As the Gimle despawns here, I'll just want to say big thanks to everyone again for supporting this channel, and thanks to all of you who have been watching. I'll see you in future videos, and well, if you want to support this channel, you can find options in the description of the video. Well, I must say I'm a tiny bit disappointed that the Mark III managed to lose this last battle here, because I never seen this before. But it goes to show you that you can prepare all you want, but there is also luck, and you don't know where luck puts the battle. A lot of contestants have actually lost against the Gimle and been excluded from the tournament. Not because their ships were just generally worse than the Gimle at doing combat, but because they've been unlucky. So that's life, I guess. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this little video, and stay tuned for future videos. This is your host Eric of GMODISM, and we are signing out.